So we're discussing these major points today. First one is we'll just get acquainted with the exam format. Okay. Then what subjects and what weights. So there is some difference between what weights we had in level 1 and level 2. The strategy that we want to use henceforth for the next 5 months, study material, schedule, and finally a secret formula to succeed. So let's start with the exams first. Same 10 subjects. Okay. Now there is a new format called item set, and this is the biggest difference between level 1 and level 2. So at level 1, the easier part was that there was a question with, let's say, 2 or 3 lines and then 3 options immediately. So what you were required to do was to know the concept and then use the data and solve for it. Now at level 2, there would be a big case study, let's say 2 pages, 2.5 pages. So the challenge is going to be first find out or first decide what data do I want to use out of this. Then find out the relevant set of data and then apply and then use it. Okay, and that's why the number of questions will now reduce substantially, but the level of difficulty will increase. So there are going to be 10 such cases in each of the paper, 10 in the morning, 10 in the afternoon. Each of them will have 6 multiple choice questions. We still have 3 options, A, B, C. Okay, so a big case followed by 6 questions and then 3 options for each of them. You take and you move on in the same fashion. Now this I have picked up from the CFA Institute website, where they say that average length is generally 1 to 2.5 pages per case study, and you have to solve 10 such case studies in each of the paper. That means you have to read on an average at least 25 pages. Okay, but based on what I remember from my exam, the size of cases can be substantially longer than this as well. Okay, so I remember I had a case in my exam where it was almost 4 to 5 pages, but I think the reason why the size could be longer is because of tables. Okay, so if they put too many tables, automatically the size of case study would increase. This is the difference now. The topic focus for CFA level 2 is on asset valuation. Okay, so at level 1 the focus was equally distributed with all of the subjects and you were required to know more of concepts. Now at level 2, the focus is purely on those 4 assets. So which 4? Equity, fixed income, derivative, and alternative investment. And then all other subjects would be reoriented in such a way that the focus is on those 4 asset valuations. The learning focus, which at level 1 was knowledge and comprehension, at level 2 this is going to be application and analysis. So this line itself will tell you what you're going to see on the exam. So if most of you have written your papers now, level 1, now you would appreciate that at level 1 they actually checks your knowledge and comprehension, isn't it? Give you terms and then find out what is the meaning of this particular term, or what does this mean, or how to solve for this. At level 2, knowing that is not going to be sufficient. So if you just know a term, not sufficient. What you need to know is how do I apply this, or how do I analyze this for asset valuation. Each MCQ is equal weight, same as level 1, no negative marking. So let's go and see subjects and weights here. I've divided them into 3 parts. So the green ones are easy, yellow ones are moderate, and the red ones are good. Okay. So these are the 10 subjects that we have. What do you notice here? No green ones. Okay. But I think it depends on how do you absorb that subject. But the way I have divided them in this fashion, this is the manner in which we are going to deal with them. Okay, so these are the 4 assets: equity, alternative, fixed income, and derivative. Now first thing that you'll observe is there is no fixed weight here. They haven't said the way in level 1, equity 10%, 15%, no. Now it's a variable weight. What could be the possible reason? Case study and overlapping, right? So you would see that there are certain concepts which are repeated in equity and FRM and corporate finance also. So the subjects are going to be overlapping. Second important thing that you would see is here. Okay, so typically that's where I've seen generally people struggle, or they don't capture this point at the inception. At level 1, alternative investment was 3%, right? So probably 2 hours, 3 hours is what we devoted to AI, not so important. At level 2, it's at par with other assets. Okay, so AI is at par with fixed income, which is at par with derivative, which means we have to give it equal focus. Now this year they've made significant changes or some major changes into alternative investment syllabus, and therefore we kind of have to be more careful with this syllabus, especially certain areas on private equity valuation. So bit tricky or bit complicated. Then this cluster of subject that typically can be done together, quant and portfolio management, and then economics. A good relief for CFA level 2 is the economics part, which is substantially easier, lighter and smaller compared to level 1. Okay, so if economics troubled you at level 1, not necessarily it would trouble you at level 2. The big is here, financial reporting and analysis and corporate finance. Now, if you struggled at FRA at level 1, then at level 2, okay, then at level 2 the biggest threat is going to be FRA. Okay, because level 1 FRA was still something which was manageable, but then level 2 FRA becomes more mathematical in approach. Okay, so if this was your threat area at level 1, then a good idea would be that you can start with FRA right from the inception. Okay, so slowly you can start mastering this topic, corporate finance, and then finally ethics. What is the difference? Kam ho gaya abhi. So earlier it was 15, now it's 10%. Okay, so this is the sequence. What is the strategy we want to use here? Attend classes on weekends or weekdays. Then your weekly test, the format that we followed, same format. Now, most of you are experienced candidates, not with level 2, with level 1 exams. So what you must have appreciated is how important is question solving. Right, so at level 1, not each one of you took that weekly test seriously. Okay, few of you घर पे लेके जाता हूँ, बाद में solve करता हूँ. So it would be a good idea if you are disciplined right from the beginning. So every week what we study, the same concept would be tested in the subsequent week in a weekly test. So it would be a good idea to take this sincerely and then again follow the same method that we followed last year with the mock test. Keep your studies in sync with the class schedule, basics. This must have helped a lot of you, that form a study group and then discuss what happened with your test. Okay, because when you discuss, you get to know the perspective of other candidates and that helps you open up in a broader way. 12 hours every week for 4 to 5 months. Okay, apart from what you're going to invest in the last month. Okay, and in case if you have leave issues, your reporting manager is not supportive, then decide how you want to get sick in the last month. But plan for it in advance. Okay, study material. This I picked up from the CFA curriculum, where they've given guidelines as to how to use CFA curriculum. Okay, so let's read through this carefully. Frequently, an examination question is based on specific example highlighted within a reading or on specific end of the reading questions or problem and its solutions. Okay, so what this is basically trying to say you is that if you are reading CFA curriculum, they will give you a few questions free. Why? Because the questions would be repeated from those examples. So how are those examples given? In curriculum, they have these blue boxes. Okay, and in these blue boxes, they give you most of the time practical examples in terms of how to use that concept in real life scenario. And then of course we did EOC's end of the chapter questions. Okay, now how I've decided to use strategy this time around is we can divide candidates into two parts. Okay, so first working, and second who are planning to do it full time. Okay, who would have reasonable time at hands. For the working candidates, it would be difficult to master entire curriculum. Okay, for the reason being that it would be lengthy to read through. So a strategy would be stick to the same notes that you used last year. Okay, so the sequence is going to be that you would read from your notes. My job would be to cover the entire curriculum. Okay, so whatever presentations that we would be doing in the class, those would be purely based on curriculum. And then if there is anything extra, you would be required to ask that down, write that down specifically. So your classroom notes that you make. Okay, so these are going to be extremely important classroom notes. Then in step number 3, apart from these two, you will still be required to do blue boxes. Okay, so there is no substitute. Even if you're using the private notes, make sure that you go and read those blue boxes. And then in step number 4, of course, what we did, end of the chapter questions and then other practice material. And the candidates who are planning to do it full time, in terms of if you have time at hands, then the only thing that changes is from notes you shift to curriculum. Okay. Now initially it might be a bit difficult because you would be shifting from one writing style to another, but I think after a few days you would get used to it. But it would be a good practice to stick to curriculum at level 2 because the language would be more close to what you would see on the actual exam. Plus level 2 is about case studies. Okay, and the private notes I feel don't do very good job at dealing with case studies because the quality of case studies that you would see in the practice material would not be very close to the actual exam. Okay, so main area of focus has to be curriculum. This end of the chapter questions we have to do 5, 6, 7 as many times as possible so that we are well acquainted with that style. Are we good to move here? Okay. So this is your study base CFA curriculum. So curriculum would be covered in presentations, end of the chapter questions, and then of course we would be recording videos in the same fashion which you can use. This is the schedule. I think most of you got flavor of both level 1 and level 2 sessions. So this is the format in which we would be approaching. Again, we would finish about 30 days before the exam. Last subject that we'll be dealing with is ethics, and then curriculum review sessions and final examination. Okay. And then the last point, secret formula to succeed, is this. That there is no secret formula. It's what the same thing that you did at level 1. Okay, and that thing is, number 1, you have to be really sincere in terms of attending and making sure you do all the classes. Second, do not mug up, but focus on logic. Okay, that understand why a particular thing was dealt in particular fashion. And third thing, apply it. So practice as much as possible right from the beginning, and if you stick to these 3, write mock tests in the final month, it should be a smooth ride. Any questions you want to ask? Yes, no? You're asking the CFA curriculum books? The coverage even with level 1 was deeper, except that the orientation changes now. So at level 1, they just wanted you to know terms. Right? At level 2, they would want you how to use it. Okay, for example, at level 1, we studied CAPM. Right? So what was CAPM? They just gave us the formula. RFR plus beta into equity risk premium. At level 2, they would ask you how do you get this RFR? Do you use 1 month treasury bill or use 20-year government bond? How do you get equity risk premium? There are 5, 6, 7 different ways of getting that ERP. Which company follows what method? In what situation? What is to be used? So it becomes more practical and application oriented. And that's why we generally say that if you want to be a research analyst, typically those kind of profiles would be open to you after level 2 because you know how it is applied in real life framework. Yes, any other questions? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, great then. So through with this.